Every year we like to sit down for a year-end chat with our leader and hero, Mark Sisson. So today's conversation between Laura and Mark about the health coaching industry and the importance of health coaches in general was actually taken from Primal Health Coach Institute's How to Become a Health Coach virtual summit held for a select audience in November of 2023. So let's listen in on Laura's conversation with the one, the only, Mark Sisson. Hi, I'm Erin Power.
And I'm Laura Rupsis.
We're certified health coaches, and this is Health Coach Radio.
This podcast is about the art, science, and business of health coaching.
We share our insider tips to help you become a better coach and entrepreneur.
And we interview expert guests to discover how they've made it in this growing field.
It's time for health coaches to make an impact.
It's time for Health Coach Radio.
All right, Mark, good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us again.
It's always a pleasure, Laura. It's always great to be here.
Well, I always learn something new every time I talk to you a lot. I have the pleasure to be able to talk to you a lot. Not all of our listeners that are going to be following this have even spoken to you before, but every single time I talk to you, I learn something different. I always walk away with a nugget, which is awesome. And so for those watching this, if you're not part of the Primal Health Coach community already, you may or may not know who Mark Sisson is, but he's our fearless founder, our main co-founder here. And it's kind of the primal blueprint in this kind of your take on this ancestral health philosophy that was the nugget that the Primal Health Coach Institute was born through. So do you mind kind of taking those listening who might not know you through how you kind of came across this ancestral health model and how that informed your entrepreneurial journey?
Sure. Well, so I've always been an entrepreneur. So starting when I was 12 years old, mowing lawns 40 hours a week with a lawn care business, to painting houses to put myself through college, to selling Christmas wreaths, opening a frozen yogurt shop in 1981 in the early days of frozen yogurt, to being a self-publisher back in the late 70s when I first started writing about health and fitness. And because I was an athlete and because I had gone to school as I was intending to be pre-med, and I was a pretty good athlete, a pretty good runner, I put off going to med school. But my interest was always in human performance, whether it was my own performance and at the elite level, or whether it was helping the athletes that I coached, because I coached at a high level for a long time, how they could get better at what they're doing, or whether eventually it was just average people, how the citizens of the world could access science and find ways to become strong and lean and fit, happy, healthy, productive, all those things. So this was all rooted in my early filters, which were based on medicine, which were based on evolution, because I was a big early fan of human evolution, evolutionary biology. I got a degree in biology. So I was really able to kind of combine the interest in science with the love I had for sports and performance to come up with a life plan for myself, which was based around research. Like I was going to research the best ways to find the behaviors, the foods, the things that we could do that would turn on the genes, that would build muscle, turn on the genes that would burn fat, turn off the genes that would cause us to be sick, turn off the genes that would cause us to get diabetes. Around 2000, I started thinking in terms of how do I correlate and compose all this together. And I started with a TV show that I put together called Responsible Health. Lost a lot of money because I was self-funded. It was a great show. I built a set. I had a guest host. I had a guest every day. I had a co-host. Shot 52 half-hour episodes of the show. But eventually I settled on a blog. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna disseminate all this amazing information that I found through my already decades of research in a blog form. So I started Mark's Daily Apple in 2006. And it was the first real ancestral health blog in the blogosphere, back when there weren't that many blogs that you could go to. So it quickly rose to the top of the rankings and the search engines as the go-to source for information on how to live in a manner that didn't recreate our ancestral pattern. The assumption was that we have this set of DNA, this set of genes that wants us to be strong and lean and fit. And all we have to do is find the behaviors, the inputs to make those genes express themselves in a way that we want, so that we are lean and strong and fit and happy and healthy and productive. So The blog became the resource, and I would, every time I'd find some new study or some new research finding, I'd go and post it on the blog. And I think my strength was always to take complex scientific ideas and distill them into easily discernible bits of information that the average person could understand and go, wow, I never thought of it like that. And with that in mind, it became my mission to find what I would call these hidden genetic switches that we all have, uncover them, and then offer ways in which people could choose to access this new information. I don't have the right way. I have a great way, right? I don't have the way. I have a way that if you do the things that I'm talking about, whether it's changing your diet up, whether it's getting more sleep, whether it's sun exposure, whether it's play, I have a way in which you might, if you do this, it might manifest itself in an outcome, in a result that you're seeking. Because Lord knows, over the last prior decades, people have been so frustrated with the advice they've been getting from the health and fitness community. Do I cut the fat? Do I exercise more to lose weight?
Yeah.
Do I take the drugs, and can I eat my dessert if I take the drugs? And, do I stay out of the sun because the dermatologist is telling me the sun's bad for me? All of these things that are confusing to people. In 2009, I wrote with my co-author, Brad Kearns, we wrote the Primal Blueprint. And that was the first time I'd put together all the things I'd been writing about on my blog into a book form that it had a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so you saw a little bit of evolutionary biology. You saw the history of humanity and civilization, how we evolved from hunter-gatherers to this agrarian people to modern civilization. Gave lots of examples of good and bad choices that people would make. And the book resonated very well with hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, eventually millions of people. I started doing seminars based on what I found. I started doing 3-day events called PrimalCon, which were also deep dives into this lifestyle I would call primal living. And early on, I realized I was really quite onto something here. Like, I think that if people lived the way these primal blueprint laws are set about, if they use them as a template, that people would not get sick, they would enjoy their greater health, they'd arrive at their ideal body composition, they'd be happier more often, and all these wonderful things that could take place. And so my mission statement was to change the health of 10 million people through my work. So I got the seminars, I got the books, I got the blog, and then I thought, I need to kind of create a copy of myself. I need to find a way to teach other people what I know. And I'm so excited about what I know, and I'm so intuitive about my life. Like, I don't need to think about I don't need to evaluate or quantify decisions or choices that I make. I make them intuitively because I have a deep knowledge of myself. I have a deep knowledge of how human biology works and how evolution created this amazing set of genes that wants to be healthy and happy and productive. So I had this idea, along with Aaron Fox and Brad Kearns at the time, to create the Primal Health Coach Institute. Let's create an opportunity for people to learn what I know and to be able to grok, which is a term that we've always used, what I know, understand it, appreciate it, and then be able to take that information and that way of thinking and go out in the world and affect other people's lives. It started out as a simple certification. We'll certify people. They'll get to know what I know. It'll change their lives. They'll get a deep dive really into the science, as well as the psychology, as well as the sociology of all the things that we talk about. And thousands of people took that course. And of those thousands, hundreds came up to me and said, Mark, this is so compelling. Like this, we could change the world with this. Why don't we up-level this and make a coaching certificate? And why don't we teach coaches how to take this and go out to either individual clients that they might have, or to corporate settings, or even if they're creating their own online business. We can teach people to take that information and they can then distribute it out in sort of a multi-level fashion, if you will. And so for my original mission of wanting to help 10 million people, and change the way they live based on their understanding of human biology, I had to add a zero to it. Now it's 100 million people. So I didn't want to sound greedy, but that's where that's at. So that's where we are. So the Primal Health Coach Institute was this realization that this information is so powerful and so compelling, and has changed so many millions of people's lives. I mean, we have millions of anecdotal testimonials about how this way of living and this template that we set out works when it's applied appropriately, that I see this, and I've seen this for the longest time, as the next really big thing in not just in the health field, but in the employment field. I think the world needs health coaches, and there's going to be a greater and greater need as time goes on.
Oh my gosh, there's so much in there. And what I'm hoping people watching this take away is that you took some things you were already good at, that you already had an interest in, right? So you leveraged your past experience, your own skill set, and things you were passionate about, saw a need in the marketplace, and went to market helping other people. And then from there, you started a TV show. Okay, it was a great TV show, didn't work out the way you wanted, pivoted into the blog, which then led to the book, which then led to, I attended one of your events when you came to Chicago, actually, into these 3-day Primal Con. So what I'm really hoping people take away from this is sort of the layering and the natural progression of, I guess, bigger steps, next steps, pivots, and things along the way. And so everybody has to start somewhere. You started out as a kid that had a natural interest in this kind of thing, and you have a natural entrepreneurial spirit. Not everybody does. I mean, we know that. And you already mentioned at the end there, this sort of, the world needs more health coaches, and there's more and more jobs out there. So if all you want to do is coach, good news is there's thousands of opportunities, and we can talk about that in a different video, actually. But in terms of those, the people that I talk to every single day, Mark, as the admissions director for our school, is I love the idea of being my own boss. I love the idea of being able to work from home, doing something I love. But there's always a but, right? And it's always followed by questions or statements that are all, I guess, designed to kind of help just express the fears they have in moving in that direction. And how can we at the Primal Health Coach Institute help reduce those fears? They're looking for answers. And so I wrote down a bunch here that I kind of wanted us to address together, that, after your decades of experience in entrepreneurship and in this realm, that you might be able to help provide some, hey, like looking through the rear view mirror, what you might have said to yourself. And some of these fears might have come up for you. I'm sure they did. The big one here is, what if I take this course or I invest in this and it doesn't work? It's all for naught. It's just a failure. I'm not able to build my business.
One of the this is the self-doubt, the self-talk, the monkey talk, the chatter. This is going on with everybody, including me. And one of the key mantras that gets me through life, particularly when there's a decision to be made, and the universe did not provide the answer to me immediately. And that mantra is, what's the worst that can happen? Right. So in the case of deciding to take a course on health and with the potential of helping hundreds, thousands, possibly millions of other people at best, and at worst, helping you live a better life. When you say, what's the worst that could happen? I guess the worst that could happen is I spend my money, I learn a lot about health and wellness and fitness that'll serve me personally, serve me working with my family for the rest of my life. And if I don't make it as a coach, the worst that could happen is I have this knowledge that's going to change my life and probably save me hundreds of thousands of dollars from the back end of my life in terms of end of life care or medical care or whatever. So if that's the worst that can happen, and I'm a glass half empty kind of guy, Laura. So if that's the worst that can happen, then where's the problem? But the best that can happen is I get excited about this. I take the course, and then I start, based on what we offer in this course, I start looking at all the myriad possibilities. Yeah, I could be I could be a very successful individual coach to individual housewives in my town. And I have 10 clients and they pay me, $100 a month. And I'm making $1,000 a month in my spare time, helping my friends get fit, all the way up to building a business where you have, 100 clients and they're paying you a lot more money than that, to the point where now you've got an online business and you're coaching real time, small amounts, but now you've built a program and now you're managing that program online with some of the resources that we have to offer. And we have people, as you know, that do in excess of $250,000 a year, several people that do in excess of $250,000 just with their managing their health coaching business from their office, from their computer, from their phones, all the way up to running a corporate wellness center at a business. Brad Kearns, who is one of the authors of many of the work, of the texts and the textbooks, and my writing partner in all my books. Brad, I met him when he was a kid, and I coached him. He's the third-ranked triathlete in the world, and he learned through me a lot about training and a lot of the things that we talked about later in life. He learned through me in the 80s, and then I didn't see him for about 10 years, and he was living his life, but part of his life was he was a corporate wellness director at a large tech company in Silicon Valley. And it was great until, through no fault of his, the company went out of business. I mean, it's a tech in the 2000 tech blow up, right? But he was in charge of hundreds of people's, wellness and well-being, and had a blast doing it. And he was a powerful person in the business because the CEO was a health nut, right? And so the CEO said, I'm a health nut. I want all my employees to be health nuts. I'm going to hire this guy who was one of the best triathletes in the world. And while he wasn't even that well-trained in coaching, he's an affable, wonderful guy who knows a lot about fitness. And he was able to move into that position. And we talk about imposter syndrome, right? He didn't get a PhD in corporate wellness. He didn't get his master's certificate in any kind of training, but he went in there and changed lives, not through some, artificial elevation, but because he was enthusiastic. He knew what he was talking about, and he knew where his limits So he could in that environment, he could coach, because coaching isn't always, and you'll learn this, isn't always about, okay, what's the answer today? Coach, tell me, what's the answer right now? What do I got to do? That's not what coaching is about. Coaching's about, let's both figure out a strategy to address the issue that we're talking about right now. And let's go through all of the different permutations of that, because the answer I give you, if I gave you the answer that works for me, might not work for you. We have to look at the context. We have to look at the template. We have to look at the framework of the Primal Blueprint. That's part of the beauty of this coaching course, is that the answer isn't always right there in the textbook. The answer is sometimes in the brain of your client, or in the brain of the customer, or in the brain of the person you're working with. You just have to draw it out, pull it out, and say, this is, given what we know about you and your background, your history, your health issues, and where you are today, and your age, and stress levels, and everything, this is what's going to work best for you in this particular context, because we know we've just both decided you're going to do it. You're the one who said, I'm going to do that. I can do that. But if I say, no, here's a list of, all right, I want you to go shopping and do all this, and I want you to stop doing this and start doing that, there's resistance to it.
Yeah.
I'm getting way off track here, but the corporate wellness thing that I'm just saying, Brad is a great example of somebody who just walked into that, and the next thing you know, he's got hundreds of people who are answering to him, and he's having fun creating games and strategies and all kinds of things with them. So you've got the possibility of going down the street to to a physician's office and saying, I know you guys have a problem, which is, your patients come in and you got 7 minutes max to spend with them going over their blood work, and you wish you had more time to craft a strategy for their life to shift their numbers and make them well and get them back on the track to being healthy again. I can help you do that, right? Or I can put together a team that'll help you do that. The number of business possibilities that come out of Primal Health Coach Institute, it's incredible how many opportunities there are here if you just open your mind to those possibilities.
100%. Right. So, God, there was so much in there. And just speaking in terms of Brad, and just in full disclosure, I mean, this is a completely unregulated industry. You don't need to have a certificate at all. If you are the number 3 top triathlete in the world, you might not need anything. You come with a lot of sort of social proof and what you do know through years of training. And he was able to use that. Oh, but I'm not, here's what someone listening. Well, I'm not Brad Kearns. I'm not the third rate. No. Okay. Well, what do you have? And the good news is Primal Health Coach Institute exists.
Exactly.
Okay. And so we can train you. We can give you the education. We can give you the training. You can borrow our confidence. And by the way, we don't just give you a certificate and graduate you. We run ongoing webinars. We offer new courses all the time. We do events that go on. We have a support team for graduates. When you graduate, Chloe's going to call you and be like, hey, how you doing? What's the next step for you? So we don't just graduate you and be like, okay, see you later. Because to be fair, the dirty little secret of the and this is not just health coaching. This is all coaching, fitness coaching, business coaching, life coaching, something crazy like 75 to 80% of the people that have a certificate are not using it full time. It's a really high number.
Right.
No one ever tells you that. I'm going to tell you that, but we aim to change that. That's why when we sat together and the very first time we got together as a team, like 7 years ago, Erin Power and I were adamant that business training and career training needed to be a part of this program because it was the biggest missing link. Nobody else had it. And we got to work on it right away. And it's been a part of our curriculum for years.
Yes.
And not just, here's how you market on social media. No. You can be on social media all day long, but if you don't know who you serve, if you don't know where your limits are, I've heard you say that about Brad, right? Look, where imposter syndrome comes from is when you're trying to put yourself out there as something you're not. Don't try to be something you're not. Stick to who you are and what you know and what you're passionate about and what you can help people with. Trust me, there's buyers out there. There's clients that are out there. There's so much to that in terms of just opportunities, just on the business development side for going for your business yourself. There's the one-to-one client. There's running group programs. There's opening an office and seeing people in person. I did it for years at my gym. Most of my clients were in person. You can do everything remotely. You don't even have to coach. You can just be a content creator and an educator. You can go out and do that. You can build e-courses. You can go corporate wellness. You can go more down the clinical space. You can do a combination of those things. You can work collaboratively with other professionals. How many was that? That was like 8.
No, it's incredible. And again, it's an exhaustive list because there are things that we haven't even thought of yet that people are going to come up with in this space that will blow your mind in terms of scalability, in terms of how they affect other people. But you still, our what we agree on is you still sort of have to have this basis, this ground of being, this essential training to give you the template to take and build for yourself a business. And that's what we spend so much time. And so much of the template is based on the science, right? We really want people to understand the science behind the questions that you're going to ask your clients, or behind the programs that you're going to build, if you're going to build an app or if you're going to build an online presence. The questions behind, how you're going to work in a physician's office if you're the one charged with taking the patient to a 45-minute consultation right after they look at the blood work. All these things do require that you have this training. But what they don't require is that you look like the cover, a model for a Muscle and Fitness or a Shape magazine, right? And that was one of the things that you and I, early on, we got a lot of that from people who were like, Mark, this, I've been reading you for years, and I started changing my diet, and I started improving on my sleep, and I started working out, and I've lost 75 pounds. I have 25 pounds more to go, so I'm not ready to be a coach, right? I'm like, no. You've lost 75 pounds. You don't, the 25 pounds that you have to go is irrelevant to what you know and who you are as a human being, and how you interact and how you connect with people, and how you enable them to take what you've learned and change their lives. So this becomes more about, I think, the fear of putting that first foot forward, right? So once you've got the training, and you go, well, okay, now I'm trained, but I'm not ready to start my business yet. Execution is everything in this world.
If there's one thing I've learned in my years as a health professional, it's that changing lives is much easier when you're doing it alongside a team of experts. Physicians, nurse practitioners, and other care providers have learned this too, which is why they're looking for health coaches just like you to join their medical patient care team. Primal Health Coach Institute's Health Coaching in Medical Practices Specialist certification prepares you for that. You'll learn how to work alongside a clinician and advise and motivate patients to change unhealthy lifestyle habits and manage chronic conditions. By the time your studies are complete, you'll be ready to secure a position at a practice that fits best with your coaching style, and you'll have the tools you need to plan programs, accept referrals, and coach patients. If you're a health coach with a passion for helping patients get the life-changing information, encouragement, and accountability they need to make sustainable changes in their health, visit primalhealthcoach.com to learn more about the Health Coaching in Medical Practices Specialist certification.
I did a podcast yesterday and I mentioned something. One of the things I'm kicking myself for, it goes on 40 years now, was inventing the TRX. You know what TRX is? You know, the black and yellow bands. Mm-hmm. Okay. I invented that in 1979, but so did 1,000 other personal trainers in Los Angeles. Everybody who was a trainer had their girlfriends or their wives go sew, or their husbands go sew some nylon webbing together, put some handles and straps together, hang it over a door, take it to clients' houses, and put them through a range of workouts. But it was the guys at TRX that just said, you know what? I'm going to invent this. I don't care who thought of it first. We're going to put it out there. We're going to market the hell out of it. We're going to create a program around it. And the next thing you know, it's a multi-$100 million company. And what I'm going at with it is that all these great ideas mean nothing if you don't execute.
Right.
And so you could say, well, I'd love to be a health coach, and I have the training, but I need to lose 25 pounds first so I look like a health coach. No, you need to execute. You need to get out there and start doing it right away, build your business. And, if you want to lose those extra 25 pounds along the way, if you actually do that, you're going to be even that much more credible. Like I started my business and I started losing weight with, the last 25 with my customers. And I don't even want to make it that, sort of that narrow-minded. I was just going to say, if you feel like you don't have the skill set yet, you certainly have the personality and you have the sales ability and you have the the charm and the charisma to go out and find a client, or find an opportunity in a doctor's office or in a corporate setting, or if you're a shy person, go online and you have the opportunity to start building your website and doing your online coaching. But it is about execution. That's the thing that holds most people up. It's this negative self-talk. It's this monkey chatter. It's just like, what if it doesn't work out? What if I spend this time and I don't get a customer? And what if, dude, I'm going through that right now. I just started a shoe business and I'm, it's tough. You got building a business is tough. But if you're in the right mindset, the thing about it that's tough makes it that much more rewarding when it's successful. And there's nothing more rewarding certainly than success, but the psychic income of changing people's lives, of having clients whose lives you changed, whose lives you have improved as a result of your coaching them. That is the sort of thing, the intangible, again, psychic income that goes beyond the amount of money you make as a coach. And so it's the reward of the business and the challenge of business, but it's also the reward of having people's lives change as a result of the business that you built. It's amazing. And I don't know how to package up that entrepreneurial part of it and tell people, look, this is eminently doable. Right. And if your first couple of attempts, you fan out, you strike out. Look, everybody strikes out at some point in business. Most people strike out most of the times in business, right? But you got to keep hanging. You got to get up at bat and do it again and again and again. And if you are even halfway good at this and passionate about it and get up with purpose every morning, you will make it happen.
Oh, 100%. And look, for every time someone says no or it doesn't work out, there's something you can take and learn from that. I've always been a big advocate of asking why. if someone said no, if I
Yep.
didn't get a job or someone turned it down. I always ask for feedback. Do you mind telling me why you made a different choice? Most people, if you ask, will tell you.
Right.
And if they keep, this is what someone told me, it was too expensive. Okay, then that's really more about them than you. So either what it is you're offering them in their mind doesn't have the value, or they don't value themselves enough, right? That the solution that you're providing they're not valuing that enough, or they're just not there, right? They just legitimately financially don't have it, and that's fine. And you'll move on to one of the things I wanted to get out of this was overcoming the fear of getting started. And you had one great question to ask yourself: what's the worst that can happen? Another question I often ask myself is, well, what's the alternative? What are the alternatives, right? So I could stay the same. And what is my life like? I can probably tell you what my life looks like if I do nothing. And how does that feel, right? There's something they'll learn about in the course when it comes to coaching, which is a decisional balance tool, right? What is the cost of making the change, the positives of making the change compared to the negatives of making the change, and the positives of staying the same versus the negatives of staying the same? And if you can get those, if it's clear to you that the negatives of not making the change are far outweighed by the positives of making the change, and you have a known downside, you can mitigate that risk, it makes all the sense in the world. And for something like this kind of just getting started, your downside. Your downside is the cost of tuition. Worst case scenario, right? That's my downside risk. But my upside has unlimited potential. And just being honest about what because sometimes it's more than one alternatives. There's doing nothing and staying what I'm doing now, become a health coach, or boom, follow, insert whatever other path you're looking for.
Right. But quite often what drives people to even pick up the phone is they're not happy with where they are now.
Right.
It's clear that whether you consciously admit it or not, you're not happy with the inertia or the lack of any sort of momentum in your life. You're not happy with where you are. You want change, and this appealed to you. And then you pick up the phone and you find out about the tuition, and you realize, well, you think to yourself, well, it's a lot of money. Well, okay, but it's a lot of money. It's a lot of cost, emotional cost of not moving, of staying where you are, wallowing in that nothingness. I think everybody should be moving ahead in life all the time. You should always be doing something. I've even tried doing nothing. I sold Primal Kitchen years ago and tried to be retired for a hot minute. Didn't work. I just need to be doing something, right? So I recognize that for myself, and I suspect most people would be like that. But the tendency is to hang in there as long as you can until it becomes so uncomfortable that you have to do something about it. Well, what if you recognize a little bit earlier that it's going to get uncomfortable if I just keep doing nothing, so I better take action now? So I'm a big fan of taking action.
Yeah. You're so right. I mean, people will change when the pain of staying the same becomes unbearable. And it's unfortunate sometimes we need to remain there, but you need to be sending that language then. You need to be speaking to those people. You need to speak the language of the pain that they're feeling and how you can help them overcome that. I'm not advocating for speaking in negative languages or instilling fear, but more so selling the alternative, right? Talking about the solution to the problem, because I want to talk a little bit too about your progression. So we've covered the blogs, the book, the 1-day events, the 3-day events, the Primal Health Coach Institute, but you skipped a couple of things in there too, right? You had Primal Kitchen, you had Primal Kitchen restaurants. I would love to, here's a great exercise that I think everyone can get a lot out of. Primal Kitchen was a huge risk. Primal Kitchen restaurants, a huge risk. One worked out really well, one not so much. Do you mind sharing a little bit about, I guess, that experience and the thought process that went into making those decisions and how you sort of got past Primal Kitchen restaurants not working out quite as well?
Oh, not quite as well.
And being fair. Oh, I know. Well, I know. But anyway, speak to that because this is what
I want to speak to that because, it was, and am I sorry that I ever did it? No, this is part of what happens with my life is that people have said, well, if you could go back and do it all over again, would you? I'm like, no, because everything I did, the good, the bad, the ugly, got me to where I am today. I'm very happy with where I am today. So, 2014, I simultaneously started two businesses. I started Primal Kitchen Foods because I thought there was a market for healthy mayonnaises and salad dressings and pasta sauces. Turns out there was. And then I thought I wanted to do sort of a sister company called Primal Kitchen Restaurants. And I got a partner in that who was in the franchise consulting business. I pretty much let that partner do most of the groundwork for 2 years. And so we grew these. I grew these two companies simultaneously, and I funded both companies. So come 2014 and 15, both companies are underway. We had sold 18 franchises for Primal Kitchen restaurants. It was bound to be the biggest success in the history of franchise restaurants. The problem was when we started building the restaurants, we realized that the fast casual concept that we'd had in mind, and I don't want to fully blame my partner, but he was the restaurant guy, I was the brand guy. We kicked ass on the brand side, but we couldn't make the dollars work. We were a fast casual dining experience selling, line caught salmon and grass-fed steaks for, 18 and $20, and you can't do that. So we opened two restaurants and realized once we were losing, we had business. People were coming in. Oh my God, this is amazing. Thanks for doing this. And we had customers, and we were losing $40,000 and $50,000 a month.
Wow.
Or as I like to say, we were losing a BMW a month. And so we had to not only close the doors, I had to shut it down and realize that this was not well thought out. And you'll note that in the ensuing almost 8 years, there are no primal, fast casual paleo restaurants that have, wild salmon and organic vegetables and all this other stuff. You see some variations on it. But so where am I going with that? Well, I was passionate about doing this. I really wanted to do this, and I felt compelled to do it, and I was willing to invest in it. And at the end of the day, it cost me about $4 million to get out of all of these. I had to give everybody that had bought a franchise back their money. I had to take over some leases. It was horrible. And it allowed me to focus, my attention on the Primal Kitchen food side, which became a huge success. And I was able to sell it for a lot of money and be set for the rest of my life. But this is to say that I needed to do both of these, and I needed to learn for both of these. And what I learned from the restaurant business was, first, don't ever do a restaurant again, Mark, because it's not my, my sweet spot. It's not I'm not a restaurant person. And number two, maybe don't be so aggressive with the ideas, but focus on one good idea and stick with that versus trying to spread out at the same time into all these other tangential areas. So
yeah, no,
there was that.
I love that. And so thinking through being able to distill down where things went wrong, that no doubt informs choices you make in other businesses or choices you make in how you think through risk taking and do I have all my bases covered kind of moving forward, right? You don't know what you don't know until you actually know that.
Yeah. And so go back to the TV show. So that cost me about $1.5 million, that experiment. Now, this is money that I had. This isn't money that I went deep into debt and, bankrupted myself and a lot of other people. This is money that I had that I was willing to risk because I thought there was an opportunity this was going to be huge. I had, before I had Primal Kitchen Foods, I've had a primal nutrition supplement company for 20 years. It's been a very successful business. So I've had several failures and I've had a few amazing successes. And, in life, generally, if you're an entrepreneur, I would say you only need one home run in your life to make up for, to cover all of the trials and tribulations and losses and heartache and all the things that go along with trying to build businesses and failing and succeeding and whatever else. It only takes one good business to make everything worthwhile.
Right.
So it's always incumbent upon the entrepreneur to get out there and keep trying. Now, live your life, love your wife or your husband, enjoy your kids, have relationships, have friends, live your life, enjoy the moment. Don't work 80, 90-hour weeks. That just doesn't prove anything to anyone. So have these goals of success, but do not overlook the fact that you have a wonderful life to live in real time, moment to moment, And so in my case, while I was doing these things, I'm coaching Little League. I'm reffing soccer games. I'm going to my kids' soccer practices and their games. I'm teaching them how to boogie board. I'm teaching them how to play ultimate frisbee, surf, snowboard. I mean, all these things that parents are supposed to do with their kids. I live my life hanging out with my kids too, right? So I think, and again, I don't want to get too far into the weeds on all this stuff, but I'm saying you can build a business and you can be fully dedicated to the goal of building a business and still live the rest of your life while it's going on. You don't have to go, okay, I'm going to forego everything important for the next 5 years while I roll the dice and build this business. No, you don't have to do that. So that was the big lesson that I learned. And the risks that I took were not so much that they would have harmed my family or me. And I think that's another important thing to say, that, take calculated risks. And then when they pay off, sometimes they pay off immensely. But if they don't pay off, you just go back to, where you were. You don't go into massive debt and do damage to yourself or your family.
Yeah. I mean, my first certification, I had no idea what I was going to do with it, and I just knew that this was what I was passionate about. And I really had no other hobbies. Like, I read nutrition books for fun. That was fun for me. I worked out, like, this was what I loved. So I'm like, I'm not really spending money on anything else. So I went ahead and did it. And the way I looked at it is I knew it wasn't guaranteeing me anything. I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but I knew it opened a door. It started a pathway for me, right? And I think sometimes the journey, you might have an idea, where you are, and you have a general kind of murky idea as to where you want to go. Some people have very vivid ideas of where they want to go. What's questionable and what's scary is the path between where you are now to where you want to go. And you don't have to have it all figured out. That's what I think holds people back too. You just need to really know the next step, right?
Yeah,
what is the next step?
I think for some people, having a business plan is a good idea.
Yes.
And because it plots a map and a strategy of how to get from here to there. On the other hand, a business plan can be constraining if other opportunities arise in the course of you're headed toward that world. I mean, my business plan when I had a supplement company was to grow the supplement business as big as I could. And I was myopic about it. I didn't see that I was writing every day about food, how to eat clean, how to eat healthy, and all the good sauces and dressings and things that you could fix in, with a recipe to put on the food to make it better for you and healthy. And then I thought, wait a minute, I'm writing about food. I should be creating food products, not supplements. And it was that myopia, and it was the strict adherence to a business plan that said, well, here's how we grow our supplement sales to X amount of dollars versus what are my customers telling me? Like, what am I hearing from my platform and my customers, and my listeners and my readers? And what am I not listening to? What am I not hearing that they're telling me they want? And they want, here's a great story for you. So I wrote a book, I wrote the Primal Blueprint. It came out in 2010, 2011, right on the heels of it. I wrote the Primal Blueprint, Healthy Sauces, Dressings, and Toppings. It was a cookbook. And I thought, this is going to crush it. I printed 50,000 copies of it because I self-published my books. We sold 6,000 copies. And the message was that, yes, people like healthy sauces, dressings, and toppings. They just don't want to make them themselves. And the message was, if somebody could make the healthy sauces, dressings, and toppings and provide them in a store where they could buy them, that would solve their problem and build an incredible business. So it was about that. The failure of that cookbook led me to a successful multi-$100 million business by paying attention to the signals.
That's a great story. Yeah. You're right.
By the way, I still got like 35,000 of them in storage if you want to buy it. If you want to buy
well, in these days, speaking of blogs, you can probably find a recipe online without having to pay for.
Are you kidding me? Of course.
Right. But I have the cookbook. I bought it. I like cookbooks, right?
Oh, you're the one. You're the one who bought it. Okay.
I'm the one who bought it. So, and you're right. Like kind of moving forward, let's say you know where you are now. You have an idea as to where you want to go. Back in my sort of business finance days, I had a new business plan every year, but I did in my mind have a 5-year plan. I knew where I wanted to be in 5 years. And I just sort of had, okay, so that's where I want to go. I could generally, what do I need to get done by the year before that, and like kind of reverse engineer it that led me to this year. So if by the end of this year, I want to be at this mark, what do I need to do now? Because that's what it all starts. It's all about action. What do you need to do right now to build the momentum and put these things into place so that you can get where you want to be by year one? And by the way, by the end of year one, you may be surpassing where you thought you'd be. You might not be there yet. If you're not, why? To your point.
And you might change your mind. You might see opportunities at the end of year one that you would not even have encountered had you not taken the first steps. And that's, I think, the most important thing about taking this first step, particularly in this field, is that by taking action and doing something and creating a business plan and getting out there and putting yourself out there and executing on what your first stage of your business plan was, that's what opens up the opportunities to either continue to do what you're doing or to pivot a little bit and say, wow, I would never have encountered this chiropractor's office down the street who's looking for, they want somebody to fill their side office up, and they'll provide me customers all day long, clients all day long. I never would have, even encountered that sort of opportunity if I hadn't taken the first step and put myself out there as a coach, a fitness coach, a health coach, a life coach, whatever it is, and then take an action. And then in the course of a Chamber of Commerce meeting, I meet the chiropractor, whatever. You gotta take the steps.
You got to take the steps. You got to do the things. You got to do the hard things. It does seem hard. What I hear from people too is, this is all the same stuff. What if I make the wrong decision? What if it's not what I expect? This is all just sort of that fear of failure and this imposter syndrome thing that just keeps coming back up. So as you're sort of listening to this, the title of this whole summit is How to Become a Health Coach, this virtual summit. There's more than one way to do this. So if you are saying to yourself, I don't feel like I'm an entrepreneur, first of all, there's a difference between a business owner and owning your business and an entrepreneur.
Right.
Right. And maybe you can speak to that a little bit, because I could imagine some people listening being like, yeah, but I don't have $1 million to invest in a TV show. I just want to be able to make, 80 grand a year to support my family. How do I do that? That's a different kind of mindset. It's a different kind of process. I mean, do you have some thoughts around that?
Yeah. I mean, I think maybe the term entrepreneur conjures up visions of, I got to get to, $10 million and I got to get this huge, massive business. Most business owners I know, mom and pop shops, in every city or town I've ever lived in, do very well, with, making $200,000 a year, $300,000 a year, running an asset that produces income, that's definable, that's confinable. So it's not running out of control. It's not requiring massive loans. Me as an entrepreneur, I mean, when I was growing Primal Kitchen, there was a time at which I owed banks $10 million. And I was a personal guarantor on these loans because I was the largest buyer of avocado oil in the world. And I had to buy avocado oil by the 350 containers a year in advance. And, so that's a bit of stress that I took on myself. I was willing to do it. But most typical business owners, you can confine the boundaries of risk to as few as, if you say, well, I want to start a personal training business and I only want 20 clients at most, but I want those clients to pay me, $300 a month. Well, that's $6,000 a month. That's $72,000 a year. There's no cost involved in doing that. You're a business person doing that. Now, if you add a zero to that, you hire 2 other coaches to work with you, and now you're doing $720,000 a year as a fitness coach. You're a business person. How much entrepreneurial, drive must there be to take that next step? Not a lot. You don't have to be an entrepreneur to do that. That's just a savvy business person scaling at a legitimately calculated pace, not taking on a lot of debt, taking on one new employee at a time because you can afford that. One of my businesses when I was in my early 20s, I had a painting contracting business. And at one time I had 15 employees and I was running 5 vans around the city, painting apartments and things like that. And every time I would grow a little bit, I'd hire 2 new painters and buy a used Ford E150 van and outfit it. And I never borrowed money for that experience because I was able to just grow that. I was a business person and I would never consider myself an entrepreneur in that context, right? But I grew it reasonably and made a good living, and everything worked out fine with that approach.
I'm so glad we addressed that and talked about that, because I think that's where most people listening kind of view themselves right now. You never know where you're going to go. Could you build an empire 5-10 years from now? Absolutely. But don't let that stop you from getting started now. Stop thinking in terms of, but I only, or, what if, and start thinking in terms of what can I do now? And
I think, to that point, this idea of executing now, like, I would not want to disabuse anyone of the idea that one day they might have millions of dollars in their business.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the successful business people I know started not with this grandiose scheme. I'm going to raise $2 million. I'm going to get all these investors. I'm going to build this big. No, they start out with a business that just naturally scales. And then at some point they're like, holy crap, I have a $5 million business here. I never intended to do it, but it just grew organically from my enthusiasm and from my willingness to explore new opportunities. And that's really where I'd go with people. I'd say, okay, have a pipe dream. Have a great dream that one day, you don't know how it's going to happen. Now you don't know how it's going to happen, but one day you'll be wealthy. But you got to start with, and you want to be in the fitness or the health field with your wealth. And then just start with this business idea that you have today, execute, see where the opportunities are, see where it goes, see where it grows. And it's amazing that if you wake up every morning and with some purpose and you apply yourself reasonably and diligently and still live your life.
Yes.
That's critical. Still live your life. It's amazing how over time the universe will help you make decisions and guide you in which direction to expand your business. And then one day you wake up and you go, oh my God, I do have an empire. I didn't think I was going to be the mayo king of Malibu, right? I never said when I was 12 years old, I want to be the mayonnaise king of Malibu, and that's my business plan. But it happened, right? And I'm glad it did. And even, 4 years before that came to pass, I had no idea that was going to happen. It just happened organically because I took action. I took the steps, put my head down. I woke up I didn't even wake up with passion. I mean, passion is a weird word. I woke up with purpose. I'm good at this. I think it's a good business. I'm going to pursue it. People want what I'm providing. And that's a great combination right there.
Yeah. We have it somewhere on our website. It's like this Venn diagram of, what you're good at, right? What you love doing, what you're passionate about, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. Mm-hmm. And what's in the center of that is your purpose and what you're going to move forward. So thank you for that pep talk. I just have one more question and I'm going to let you go, because I know that you send me people all the time. Hey, Laura, so-and-so is going to call you because I was telling them about the school and I told them to call you and that you'd hook them up. So you talk to people about this kind of stuff all the time. So when you're talking to people, you're thinking to yourself, well, this person would make a great health coach.
Yeah.
What is it that you hear from them? What is it about that person that you're like, no, that person would make a great health coach, for people listening?
Well, quite often it's people that are already doing something in the field, right? In the case of the people that I send over to you, like I think most recently it was like a yoga instructor that I met on the beach. And she's like, I love yoga. I love health. I love people. I want to do more. Yoga is just one small facet of a healthy lifestyle. And I've been into a healthy lifestyle my whole life. Do you have any ideas? I'm like, oh, do I have an idea for you? And so there is quite often a tangential, again, for her, becoming a primal health coach is a pivot. She's a yoga instructor. Now she's a primal. It was a pivot away from yoga, and yoga's great. However, it's fairly limited in the scalability of it, unless you have a big studio in downtown Manhattan. So for her, it was a perfect pivot. It's a great pivot for anybody who's a nurse practitioner, physician's assistant. I always think back to Dr. Al, who recently passed away from, from the cancer that he beat for an extra, he was an extra 3.5 years, but he was a periodontist who just loved the concept and wanted to pivot away from the dental surgery and see if he could not just fix the existing symptom, but fix the problem, which was the way people were eating and the way they were, taking care of the rest of their lives. So for him, that was a pivot. And I think we've had a number of MDs go through the program and say, well, I'm changing my practice. I'm no longer, just this guy who's billing Medicare for every patient I see and billing the insurance companies. Now I've got a concierge practice, and now I teach people how to live a primal lifestyle. And that's part of what we offer in a medical setting. So there are so many ways that people can take what they're doing now and pivot. And that's what I look for when I talk to people about what I do with Primal Health Coach Institute. I will always be listening to what people's dreams are in terms of if they're in the field of helping people, then I'll say, okay, well, what would be next for you, and what would you, what's missing? How would you scale what you do? And if there's an impasse there, then that's when my light bulb goes on and says, well, here, maybe I have the perfect plan for you.
Yeah, that happens a lot, especially with clinical practitioners who are confined by their license.
Yeah,
this gives you an opportunity to unconfine yourself. But that's maybe half the people I talk to. The other half are English teachers, salespeople, lawyers, truck drivers, soccer coaches, stay-at-home moms, construction workers, police officers, firefighters. Right. So these are people that don't already have a profession, but they're passionate about this.
Yeah.
And they, to your point, they have this sort of passion to serve and to help other people. This is the common link. The difference is the people you're talking to followed that passion earlier, right? They followed that. I want to help people earlier. So these are people a little bit later. This is a career change for them, which is another scary, whether you're thinking of owning your own business or just starting a new job, it's still a career change. And there's some fear there. Are there any character when people are like, is this a good fit for me? What kind of characteristics would you think somebody would need to have or should have when following this path?
Well, I think you have to have a genuine interest in learning about how the body works. And then I think you have to have a really genuine interest in people. You have to be a people person, right? I mean, you don't have to. You could be an introvert and build an app and take this information and build an app. But I think for anybody who's working with other people, you have to come from the heart with this. You can't be clinical about this, to use the term. You have to be human about this, and because this really is this is caring. This imparting of wisdom that's sort of filtered by an understanding and a communication understanding of who that other person is and getting to know them is an important part of being a health coach. And it's missing from some of the programs that I've seen in the past, right? So I would say the interest in learning about human health and a genuine interest in people. That's just full stop. If you're not really interested in helping people, but you just want to make some money, I would say this is not the course for you.
Which I do get sometimes. Hey, they were likely looking for some sort of turnkey, take it out of the box, multi-level marketing, franchise kind of opportunity. That's not what this is. So this probably isn't for you. That's something else. So thank you, as always, for your wisdom. This is fantastic. You're going to be likely the first interview here in this virtual summit.
Cool.
So Primal Kitchen is sold. Primal Health Coach Institute is growing. We've got a ton to consider in terms of education and helping you along your path. You've got Palooza behind you. neon lights, the
Right.
sort of your next endeavor at the age of 70, starting a new business, because why not? But this is what
Why
you
not?
want.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So I just love that. And so we wish you luck with your new endeavor. And we thank you as always for your leadership and your wisdom. And, I'm sure we'll be hitting you up again for.
Please do. Please do. Thanks, Laura.
More nuggets. Thanks, Mark.
This podcast was brought to you by Primal Health Coach Institute. To learn more about how to become a successful health coach, get in touch with us by visiting primalhealthcoach.com/call. Or if you're already a successful health coach, practitioner, influencer, or thought leader with a thriving business and an interesting story, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us at hello@primalhealthcoach.com and let us know why we need to interview you for Health Coach Radio. Thanks for listening.